it's been an epic adventure. I'm literally on day 16 of a current 30-day trek that has taken me through Lesotho, South Africa, Botswana. We're here now. Next month, I'll be somewhere else. This is what I do for a living. And I'm largely driven by the need to redraft the Zimbabwean and the African narrative through travel. If you can put on the next slide, please. So a little bit about my journey as well. Citizen of the world. I have been blessed to go to school, obviously locally, overseas, came back home, tried a hand at tourism circa 2007, and then opportunities abroad called, headed back out, and found myself in the UAE. For me, my big pivot was transitioning from 6 years in Abu Dhabi, moving to Dubai, and asking myself, what's next? So what ended up happening for me is, in the joys and the uncertainties of COVID, I listened to what was happening. There was a lot of chatter around the vaccines and all the Africans are going to die. We need to vaccinate all of them. I don't know if you guys were watching all the news and all that rhetoric that was coming out from the West. We need to vaccinate all of them. And I felt like there was so much trepidation in the atmosphere around that era. And I wanted to be impactful. I also was getting a lot of messaging from my friends in the tourism industry who were talking about how the borders had closed, how they had heavily impacted their livelihoods, how they're having to send staff home or cut wages and all of that stuff. And it was a constant conversation. So I thought, okay, how do I answer? What is my answer to that rallying call as a PR person? And that's how Travel Essence magazine was born. We hit the ground running. To this day, I still edit every single issue of the magazine from my dining room table. It's symbolic to me because that's where my journey started. But even beyond that is the fact that after 6 months of pushing out one issue a month, which is a rigorous exercise, some cases I was writing 70% of each issue, word for word. I got a call from Dubai Tourism. So that was my big pivot. Dubai Tourism called and said, Yvonne, we love what you're doing, but can you do this for Dubai? And I said, they said, are you doing this for Dubai or can you do this for Dubai? And I said, of course I can do it for Dubai. I'm like you, I had no clue what my plan was. So my only caveat was I wanted to be able to tell the story of Africans in Dubai, in the UAE, in the GCC from our lens. So whatever you want me to talk about, there has to be a component of our people. I have to speak about our people in that set. So that's how we transitioned and we kind of wormed our way to being known as the PR person for the African community or the African diaspora. So anybody that has an activation, anyone that's coming into town, be it celebrities, be it this and that, if there's a touch point with African people, they will look for Yvonne. That is for me a milestone because what it told me and what it's shown me along the way is that it takes a seed and it takes passion and showing up. I had no plan. I'm not a mass comms graduate. I just love telling stories and I went full press court in doing it and I've been doing it for several years now and it's taken me to what is now Travel Essence magazine. So the question, I was mandated today to talk about travel and why is travel and tourism important for Zimbabwe? The answer to that question for me came from several observations. First of all, a lot of us in this room may or may not have lived in the diaspora. We travel a lot, I want to imagine. How many of us constantly and consistently hear our people saying positive things about Zim? Anybody? I'll give you an example. Tell me. I would like to hear.
I'm always sad in the country, so.
Well, I love that for you. Well done. Thank you for that. Because generally speaking, you find that the first thing that we talk about is all the stuff that's not working. We are constantly amplifying, hey, guys, things are tight, hey, Maria, and all of that. Yet we have so much that we can talk about. And if I would challenge you to put yourself in the position of somebody from, say, Nigeria, with all the stuff they've got going on, they are brazen. They show up, they occupy space, and they don't focus on what's not working. They focus on the fact that they are present, they are here, and you will see us. So what I implore of us in this room as we even leave after this event is to really think through what messaging are we pushing, what verbiage are we using when we speak to people about our country, right? So for me, my rallying call to myself and to others is through travel. I literally exhaust all my efforts into talking about what makes the continent so amazing through travel. I take people through a journey, we chronicle it and we write about it, and we use all our digital platforms to do that. And we've managed to create a brand that is really at a place that is making a lasting impact, not only to the industry, to the Zim industry, but to the Pan-African industry in the hospitality, travel, tourism space. Now, also on observations, is us as Africans, do we actually know our continent? Do we actually know the details of what's happening, not necessarily the details, but the broad spectrum of what's happening in Rwanda, or Morocco, or Namibia? If you're asked to give a couple, 3, 4, 5 sentences, can you? Because the reality of it is those other guys know way more about our continent than we do. That's why they are owning stuff, running things, while we're over here complaining about they're here, they're taking this, they're taking that. But we have a real opportunity to plug in by actually seeking out. I loved, again, what you said, Victor. I'm going to keep referring to you because you touched on so many points. You hear the term think global, act local. I think it goes something like that. So critical that while we are doing what we do and in our respective spaces, yes, we're Zimbabwean, but let's not even think outside the box. Let's just take the box off completely. Because there's so much that's happening outside of the stage, outside of your room, outside of your gate, outside of your town. There's so much happening, and it starts with these conversations. I had never heard about you, but I'm so excited because everything that you said, I'm like, oh my God, we need more of your age mates hearing about what you're doing, that it is possible, it can be done, yeah? And then our people as well, like I said, despite our remarkable talent, we generally have an issue with ourselves. We downplay our talent, we downplay the talents of others. There's a lot of great talent in our country, there's a lot of great talent in the industry, but there has to get to a point where we stop celebrating silly memes that don't... I mean, I like that we use humor to cope, but humor doesn't always solve problems beyond that moment of the kiki and the kaka, right? We need to really think about, I mean, the content that's out there that has zero value to what we're trying to achieve is shocking. And a part of the problem as well is even us as content creators and the digital, spaces, the stuff that we're sharing, how does it actually benefit what we're trying to do as a nation, right? So whether it's a case of as the regulation to what can and cannot go out, I don't know, yeah? So COVID shed light on how tourism had long been an undermined economic driver, I think. Next slide, please. I say this because there was a big shift that I witnessed being on the outside with regards to local tourism and appreciation of travel for us as local people. We started to see opportunities arise from the fact that we had been locked up in our houses for six months, 8 years, whatever it was. Next slide, please. And the borders that closed caused a bit of a panic. Of course, the industry was hugely affected, among others. And there was a need for us to start thinking about how do we get creative to stay afloat, right? So from the outside looking in, we started to notice a huge drive in terms of like tourism boards really amplifying messaging, industry players banding together to create solutions. How do we get more of our people to come and stay at lodges? So I don't know, there are some lodges in this country that none of us would ever dare to my $2,000 a night. That went all the way down to my $250. I can name a couple. And it also started to, we started to see a lot more people wanting to go out, venture out, see what's happening about town, see what's happening about the country, which was fantastic, all right? But beyond that, in terms of COVID and the challenges that arose that speak to why tourism is important, we saw number of people that lost their jobs, obviously. We saw impact on wildlife protection and community upliftment initiatives. Guys, tourism plays such a vital part of feeding the ecosystem in the respective destinations. So you literally have some entities that are building schools in rural areas, that are building, that are digging boreholes and all sorts, that it's not publicly known, but it is happening on ground, yeah? And then we also saw that, I will speak from the perspective of being in Dubai and being in the UAE during COVID. For Africa travel during COVID, the pivot happened in that Asia closed, the US closed, Europe closed, which were all traditionally the key markets for the GCC region, and everywhere else. They could not move, and the only trade routes and movements, pathways were into Africa. I remember COVID happening in March. I remember in August having a meeting with the Rwanda embassy to talk about how they were going to PR the fact that they were going to be the first air carrier to start flying from the GCC into Africa. Obviously, Ethiopian was the COVID bus. You would fly to 6 different countries to get to home, But the point of it is that the skies were open. The skies were open. Not only were they open, but also our cases were not nearly, our cases as a continent were at bay up against the likes of the UK, up against the chaos that was happening in New York. It really started to give us an opportunity to spin this thing a little bit around and talk about why Africa is amazing. Next slide, please. So I did speak a little bit about all of these things, but I just want to add the fact that we also witnessed tourism players really start looking at the importance of sustainability in their operations. So previously, maybe they were importing foodstuffs. Now they had to look at how they're going to grow stuff because they can't bring in, fresh produce from Kasane if you're in Vic Falls or, from wherever, if you're wherever, right? So there was really a concerted effort to start looking inwards in how to solve the problem. And what that means is if I'm that granny that's growing lettuce, I have a chance to sell my lettuce to that restaurant or that lodge. If I'm growing carrots, if I'm selling this and that, I have a chance to kind of put my stuff forward, yeah? Aggressive approach to international marketing strategies. Obviously, it was Expo 2020 that came later, but from our observations as well, sitting in Dubai, we saw a lot of African tourism boards actually take that time to think through what their tourism strategy is, what is their message, and coming out. I mean, I'll tell you, Eswatini showed up hugely at Expo. Rwanda, Mauritius, Seychelles, there was really, really strong messages. We showed up. I remember Westprop brought over Jar Praiser, and the dome was packed. And it was amazing to see our flags and people coming out and just different nationalities holding Zim flags and enjoying the vibe there. That is all part of the storytelling and the nation brand visibility aspects of the opportunities that reside in through tourism, yeah? Next one, please. So mine is to say, travel and tourism is important to Zim because beyond the tourism dollars and all that they can do in the economies and some such, it's an opportunity for each of us to publicly display what makes our country so awesome, okay? There are so many elements that are present, be it our landscapes, be it our people, destination. I mean, there's a whole list and it's coming now. Next slide, please. And if you were to think about Dubai, how they literally have built what they have now from nothing, it's all in how they PR and they manage. You will never find a local speak badly about their country by any stretch. You will never find it. You will never hear it. And equally for us as expats, again, we're 80, 90 plus, 200 plus nationalities living in the UAE alone, and 90% of us are expats. We all know, how dare you think you can say something crazy on social media, in the papers, to the press. It doesn't happen. Even us in the media, whatever you're writing, think very nicely before you put it out. Otherwise, airports, yeah? We have a duty to leverage the opportunities we have in tourism and travel to help shape the narrative of this country. I found it really fascinating that we have 5 World Heritage Sites, UNESCO World Heritage Sites that are in Zim alone, and each of them has a very unique story. Let me speak to the different segments of travel that all of us can tap into, because there's something in there that speaks to all of us. You've got your pleasure, you've got your adventure travel, you've got your wellness and retreat, you've got your mice and all of that stuff. We're all here, we all had to make a commute from somewhere. You've got cultural opportunities. Look at what the Kingdom of Eswatini is doing with their festivals. They've got Umhlanga Reed Dance, and they create a whole cultural fest around that. Adventure, obviously, we know that is. Rural tourism is a really interesting one that I've seen taking shape in Zim right now. I think it's fantastic to see so many people coming out of the diaspora working together with rural communities to create products. There's a lot happening outside Vic Falls. There's an amazing, I can't remember the name, and I won't, try not to give her a shout. There's brilliant stuff that's happening. I saw a Peniel or something outside Vic Falls, a beautiful, they're huts, traditional huts, but they're decked out really, really nicely. It's a lady that's based in the UK, and she's built this massive thing, and her whole thing is she's employing people that live in the community. The food that they're preparing at the lodge is grown by community members. There are real opportunities that we can all tap into. Even kumisha kwenyu, if you are slick like that, I have a couple of people that I consult for that are, their rural areas are not so far out, and they've created products, which is really, really cool to see. Wellness stuff, we are all stressed. From time to time, you just want to do some cool stuff. Luxe travel, solo travel, culinary travel. I saw a big splash about local cuisine and recently. All of that stuff is fantastic to see, because you've got countries like Morocco that have a whole strategy on culinary tourism. Okay, Cape Town. People go to Cape Town. It's amazing for nature, but we go to eat and drink, isn't it? Exactly. So there are all of these things that we need to start thinking about, how we can go beyond just saying, visit Zimbabwe or Zimbo. What does that even mean? Really and truly, and I say this openly and honestly all of the time, we have to start unpacking our message beyond little taglines that sound cool and flags and people dancing and we are not telling our story. And the journey that we are on at Travel Essence is especially that, to unpack every single destination, brand by brand, the efforts that each brand or each stakeholder is playing in that landscape to make a difference and create products that people can all come out and enjoy.
I couldn't, I feel your passion, I feel your energy, and I completely buy what you're trying to do. But here's my problem. How do I market this country the way it is? How do I not say something negative when I've just left home, there's no power, the generator couldn't work, the gate can't open because there's no ZESA, the pothole has just messed up my tire, all that kind of stuff. How do you manage to do that? So it doesn't take away anything that you've said, but I'm in this headspace where all that you've said is just being erased. Talk to me about that.
So I will say, first of all, there's not a single country that does not have its drama. There's not a single one. Somebody's trying rushing for their appointment at the U.S. Embassy because America is the dream. Friends, I lived there for 8 years. I've lived many places. There is no place that's void of its stuff. I think how we combat this and how you combat some of the negative aspects, because yesterday you said something very poignant in your opening line. You said Zimbabweans were toxic. There's this toxicity. But if you think about it, the toxicity it festers from where you focus your energies on. Guys, West Africa, guys, I've been to places where...
yeah, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But my thing is, how do you, with all that, so let's focus on us now.
Yeah.
How do you, with all that negativity, with all that toxicity, because it's going to help us, eh?
Yeah.
How do you come out of that place and stand outside and be positive about what your country has? It's got all of it. Great Zimbabwe, Vic Falls and everything else. Yeah. But my current experience is something else. I mean, I really would love you to download that.
I understand that completely, but my message on that point still remains the same. There are countries that are far worse than we are. It's just not out there. There are many. Africa is hectic. It's beautiful, incredibly diverse, but there's some countries that you're really like, wow, this is Africa. Zim is not one of them.
So do we sell ourselves by saying we are better than them, or we just tell our story?
No, I don't think we say we're better than them. I think that's a bit acrimonious. Yeah. I think it's really picking out your USPs. Yeah. There is so much that's happening. Even with myself, I come back and forth quite a lot, and it's really cool. Driving up here, I haven't been to Nyanga in a couple of years, but I could see how many new gas stations, how many new shopping complexes in Rusape and in Maronde. Like all of those things are things that we should toot our horns about. We all have smartphones. We all have an opportunity to say something. If you're not on social media, I understand. But it's a conversation that can be had to say, did you see this? Did you see that? This is what's happening. This that's being built.
Am I the only one who's feeling the way I'm feeling? Any questions for Yvonne? Prof. Moyo, please. So I'm feeling this. I'm very excited about what she's saying. But it's just the reality of going out there. Yes, I can go to Vic Falls and post this beautiful picture of this is Vic Falls. And I love this country to pieces. And I don't want to be toxic. Maybe let me not say anything about... I want us to be real. Prof. Moyo? Yeah?
Can I start by correcting you, Trevor? Because everybody is going to go out of this room thinking I'm Prof. Jonathan. Please, I'm not a professor.
Dr. Nkosara Moyo.
Okay, Yvonne, thank you very much. And I really understand what you're saying, because I think there is a lot of truth in what you say. But I want to come at it slightly differently from what Trevor is saying. To improve anything, you need to acknowledge what is not working.
100%.
So if we pretend that it's all working, when we know that a proper diagnosis will show us what is not working, how do you understand that?
Wow.
That's a brilliant question, actually, because in my world, in PR and comm space, sometimes we're put in these hectic situations where we have to clean up a house that we didn't see was about to burn. But we do that in messaging. We call it a spin, isn't it? We call it a spin. It's not to say that we should ignore the issues. It's that we should manage the tone at which we address the issues. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Because the issues are there. Now, if we're coming at those issues without actually putting forward on the table solutions and having these conversations with the relevant parties about these solutions, to be quite frank, we can talk about this, that, and the other, but if you, like what you said yesterday, if there isn't any dialogue, if we're not creating these platforms to sit with the key critical stakeholders and say, friends, we're not going anywhere.
Yvonne, sorry to push back. I understand PR to say it's difficult to market a damaged brand. It's difficult to say to people who just drank a Coke, found a red or it's poison and sorry Coke, and to say to them, oh, it's a beautiful Coke, still go ahead and drink it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. This brand is damaged. We are damaged. Here's my pointed question to you. What would be the key 1-2 things to do to market this damaged brand without overlooking the negatives?
I think I don't think that you can overlook the negatives because they're a reality that exists in our lives, right? We are waking up with these challenges and they are frustrating. However, my mantra, and I think the mantra of many places, is that you have to ask yourself, what can I control in the now? I think the challenge that we face as Zimbabweans is we used to be very collective in our approach. Now it's my problem, it's my corner, I need to fix my thing, right? And the fixing my thing doesn't help us, because ultimately, if the next person is in trouble, they're still going to come to you and need help anyway, right? So I feel like there's been a shift. I have lived outside the country more than half of my life, but I am very much rooted here. I'm here often enough, so I see the changes and I see the shifts, right? I also am privileged to live in other places and see how they address those things. And I think a big part of it is to really ask yourself the question about, what can I do in my little mountain of influence, or in my sphere of influence? What can I do?
Our South African friend has a sharp question. I know you're talking about tourism yesterday. Very pointed question.
It's actually more of a comment, and I think I wanted to support you because I'm also going to be behind.
Yeah. Take the mic behind you. Make it brief.
So, what I think really needs to happen is that inspire nation.
Yeah.
The problem with Zimbabwe is that the Zimbabwean story can only be built from the top going down. Lots of people in Zimbabwe are not exposed to what's really amazing. I stay in Hannah's house and I come and I ask for the house, where can I go over the weekend for lunch? There's always nothing.
Just hold on. There is noise in the background. Is that our next session?
So generally, it's always nothing to do in Zimbabwe. So Zimbabweans themselves are not aware of the amazing things that are in Zimbabwe, because you guys don't travel outside of your circles. And as a result,
that's a dangerous generalization, but anyway.
Can I say?
Yeah.
Right? So then you can't promote what you don't know.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is to be able to start telling the people what Zimbabwe has to offer. And millions of Zimbabweans do not know that, there's Walter's life on the other corner. In Milford, we are building a lodge, but there's Milford Farm where you can be able to go in for a fabulous time. There's a spa in the wild just in Rua. All of those things, I don't know how many people in this room actually know, and I'm from South Africa and I've been experiencing that all the time.
Okay.
I can chime in there a little bit.
Okay, there's two, short ones, please, and then we need to close, really. There was another hand, no? Okay, just yours.
But I just want to talk about the industry as well.
Yes.
That you're coming from, the travel industry. And the lack of service.
Yeah.
Lack of service, lack of talent, lack of motivation, lack of just wanting to do better.
It's lack of investment.
To say hospitality, what do we call it? Tourism and hospitality. I think they missed it. It's terrorism and hospitality. It was like,
wow.
Do you know what? I think.
Okay, so terrorism and hostility. Wow. First time I'm hearing that. Yeah.
I would say also onus is on the stakeholders. Yeah. To be fair, standards have gone down significantly, but you also equally have some really fresh new products that's out there. And to his point, we've been conditioned to think it's better outside. So most people in this room knows more of Santon than they know what's happening in Zim. That's the reality. Yeah. Most of us know more of London and Toronto and Dubai than we know what's happening here. And there's a lot of really cool products that has sprung up over the past 3-4 years. So my thing is to say that it should, for me, it's a personal mission and I enjoy it. And I could tell you of a million places that nobody in this room knows that exist here in Zim.
Nkosana Moyo, not Professor, the other one, Dr. Nkosana Moyo. And then that's it, Nkosana, after that.
Yvonne, can I challenge you? Yes. I would like you to try and offer a possible explanation why you're telling that.
I mean, do you really want me to say what I think? Because we all know the answer to that, though.
No, I don't think you let the end in this conversation from you.
I think we do.
Okay, I think that's a big elephant in the room. That
I think Trevor can unlock the elephant.
Well, guys, shall we put our hands together for Yvonne, obviously from the responses, it shows we're excited about what you're doing. I love your passion for your country, for our country. I think the sense around the room is we would all love to arrive where you are right now. There is the hostility and terrorism thing, which is at a product level. There is the macroeconomic issues that people are dealing with, which at the moment is a challenging thing. But we absolutely love what you're doing. One day we'll catch up with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.